We have video evidence of people abusing children and not a single person got arrested. How can you call that a democracy? So humanity is at a crossroads where for the first time ever, we need to wake up and realize that we're ruled by maniacs. And what we believe is democracy is not democracy, and what we know is not the truth. Like companies and governments will blame the geopolitical and economic challenges we have on AI, but the truth is AI is not the enemy. Like, I'm not worried about AI turning against us. I'm worried about humans telling AI to turn against us. Like, when I worked at Google, we were building amazing things, believing that we were making the world a better place, and we were. But then suddenly there is a moment where you recognize that maybe the world will not use what you're making the way you want it to be used. And sadly, this is upon us.
So I have lots of questions.
Okay, that's good.
So what's your take on this job disruption point? What is the risk of these very intelligent models that the creators of these models don't actually understand themselves? Do you think Sam Altman's pro-humanity? How do we get to a point of ethical AI when the incentive structures are so highly competitive? And then I wonder if there's a path that ends in AI being net positive for humanity.
For sure. Somehow we've been pre-programmed to believe that this is upon us and we cannot change it. And I refuse that. So we will talk about the solutions.
But are you optimistic?
I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm not optimistic about the next year.
Why the next year?
Come on, Stephen. You don't want me to say it? So...
This is super interesting to me. My team give me this report to show me how many of you that watch this show subscribe. And some of you have told us, according to this, that you are unsubscribed from the channel randomly. So favor to ask all of you, please could you check right now if you've hit the subscribe button, if you are a regular viewer of the show and you like what we do here. We're approaching quite a significant landmark on this show in terms of a subscriber number. So if there was one simple free thing that you could do to help us, my team, everyone here, to keep this show free, to keep it improving year over year and week over week, it is just to hit that subscribe button and to double check if you've hit it. Only thing I'll ever ask of you. Do we have a deal? If you do it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make sure every single week, every single month, we fight harder and harder and harder and harder to bring you the guests and conversations that you want to hear. I've stayed true to that promise since the very beginning of the Diary of a CEO, and I will not let you down. Please help us. Really appreciate it. Let's get on with the show. Mo Gaudat, I spoke to you, I think about 4 years ago when you wrote a book about happiness. And I remember you came in and you'd written this book about AI, but I particularly wanted to speak about the subject of happiness because I was fascinated by it. What I find astonishing is the fact that you were talking about AI before anybody was really talking about AI. No guest that had ever come on my podcast had ever mentioned the subject of AI. It just wasn't interesting to the world. And then this thing called ChatGPT came out, and suddenly everybody got to feel it for themselves and became fascinated by it. My first question, and this might be a question for people that don't know you, is why at that time did you start talking about AI before anybody else?
I knew them in the lab. I joined Google in 2007, very late 2006. And at the time, most people don't know that at the time we had reasonably established AIs doing our back-end work. And 2008, we had the CAT paper, which was published 2009, the first real unprompted AI. I remember 2016, I had that incident where I was observing a project we were funding that was about teaching grippers how to grip, unlike industrial machinery. So to be able to grip like a human needs a very high level of intelligence to assess the texture, the softness, the positioning, and so on, the shape of everything. And we were doing that, and it just blew my mind how similar to my kids they were. And I think that was my very first realization that we were building the apex of intelligence. We were genuinely handing over the reins of superintelligence to another being, right? And when you get faced with that, you start to suddenly realize something that we at Google found very difficult to realize, which was that everyone I knew at Google till then was believing that we were making the world a better place, and we were. We genuinely were doing amazing things for the world. But then suddenly there is a moment where you recognize that maybe the world will not use what you're making the way you want it to be used. And you can see that in lots of technologies. Social media starts by the claim that it's going to get us connected and get us closer, but eventually ends up separating us with that little screen. Dating apps are giving you the promise that you're going to find your soulmate, but in reality, they keep renewing month after month. And so tech somehow ends up being more capitalist than altruistic. And I think I wasn't the first. Nick Bostrom started, Jeffrey Hinton completely changed his mind. Fei-Fei Li is starting to say, this is very serious. Everyone who's ever had a very deep relationship with the machines is a bit concerned.
I wonder if there's a path that's hard to see now that ends in AI being net positive for humanity.
For sure. I bet 100% on that. It's that this path is very painful.
This path is very painful.
Yeah, so the example you need to understand is, we discovered nuclear power, and the very first implementation was a nuclear bomb, not nuclear energy, right? And I think that's exactly what's happening with AI. The first implementations of AI are in favor of a few at the expense of the majority. In favor of the capitalist to increase productivity and reduce costs, but not taking into account how that impacts on the general public. In favor of the armies that are now competing with autonomous weapons, in favor of the surveillance systems that are attempting to control everything with more and more and more intelligence and more monitoring. And that's not AI waking up in the morning and saying, hey, you know what, let's oppress all humans. But it is a powerful few that are simply deciding to use the ultimate superpower on the planet today to gain more power and more control. I mean, as we speak, we're living in two major wars where AI is doing most of the killing.
Because a lot of people think of AI as these like chatbots that we're all using to help us write.
No, I think there is a hype. I call it the hype dichotomy, if you want. So what the general public sees about AI is overhyped, but ineffective. All of the fake videos and all of the, Grok did this and, we attempted to switch off that machine and it did that and so on. What the real geeks see inside the lab is just unbelievable intelligence. And so what is about to happen is that we've started to put together systems that develop themselves. They look at their own code and they run experiments and they test those experiments if they changed something and they see where the machines are, the performance is, and redeploy the best code. Okay. And if you just think of that, I want you to try and imagine a world where we have a tiny little genius sitting in the back end somewhere trying. But instead of trying a new code every day, it's trying a new code every microsecond. Eventually, sooner or later, they'll discover something, right? And I think that's what most people don't realize. What most people don't realize is how intelligence triggers intelligence. And if you really, really understand this, you realize that the hype on the normal human side is completely overrated, missing the main topics, and the silence inside the vault, if you want, of the geeks is quite alarming. No, not alarming in a bad way, but it's quite world-changing.
I think world-changing is a really interesting phrase because I find that to be quite true, that the world is at the precipice of quite a significant change in many respects. It's funny. I almost swing backwards and forwards with my thoughts on AI. I guess one of the thoughts that hasn't swung is that there's going to be pretty tremendous job disruption. I would have logically believed it from reasoning up from, okay, intelligence increases. What is intelligence? And once intelligence is in the form of these agents, where on my phone right now, I can tell my agent to do something. It uses the computer downstairs. It does it for me. When I first experienced that, I was like, wow. Okay, so it can do anything that's on a computer. It can click around. It can do stuff for me. There's a lot of people that are paid in the world to click around on a computer. I'm probably one of them, to be honest. And then the other eureka moment was just in seeing how my own hiring had started to shift.
For sure.
And I started to notice that we were thinking about AI proficiency in our hiring a lot more. And that especially, I think the guys at Anthropic, which is one of the big AI companies, said that they could see, I think they said roughly 15% of entry-level jobs could now be done by AI. I think that's what they said. And that started to correlate with what I was observing. And this is when I thought, oh my gosh, yes, no, this is going to cause a lot of job disruption, especially at the entry-level.
I think you're spot on with that. Not the blue collar, but the entry level knowledge work.
Yeah, and that became my first concern. You know, I sat here with Dara, the CEO of Uber, and he was quite clear that the 9 million Uber riders won't have their jobs anymore. What's your take on this job disruption point?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, your team gave me this lovely little pyramid, basically. You know, if you think of the bottom layer as blue collar jobs. Right? More people doing manual work. On top of it, you'll have those, call them knowledge workers, mostly doing mundane jobs, like you said, clicking on a computer or responding to a phone call or whatever. Then you have the middle knowledge workers, jobs that require a bit more intelligence, anything from a paralegal to a financial analyst to all of that. And then, of course, top leadership. And most people think it's going to be starting from the bottom. I don't think it will start from the bottom. Actually, I think blue-collar jobs will stay for a very long time.
Give me an example of a blue-collar job for someone that's
a carpenter. Okay. I love to restore classic cars. So, there isn't a robot that can do that yet. Okay. This, however, anything that is call center agent, assistant, travel agent, anything that you can do with a few clicks and is mundane, is going to disappear very quickly. My prediction is you're going to start to see very serious impact in 2027. Now, what you had not sensed it before because what we saw was no hiring in that segment. So that what you saw in the last couple of years is that companies were not hiring entry-level jobs anymore. It wasn't job losses yet, but that basically meant the workforce was not growing, right? The next layer, I think, would probably be the knowledge workers. As intelligence increases, a paralegal would probably not be needed because AI can do the research, or one paralegal can do the job of 4, a financial analyst the same, and so on and so forth. But interestingly, it continues to go up, believe it or not. And I hosted Max Tedmark on my documentary, and he was laughing out loud, genuinely laughing out loud, saying, most of the CEOs believe that they can fire everyone and have AI do all of the jobs. They just don't remember that AGI is going to do everything better than humans eventually, including being a CEO.
So let's first define, when you say white collar, you said lawyers there. What kind of roles is that?
Everything. I mean, if you're a doctor that's doing diagnosis, you probably will have fewer doctors doing more diagnosis, because I think the NHS does that already by asking people to interact with an AI first. If you're a composer, a music composer, some composers will lose their jobs because of that. If you're an artist that's doing graphic design, some will lose their jobs because AI comes into that. And interestingly, even middle management. I mean, I told you offline about my startup. My CTO is an AI. My chief of staff is an AI. My project management is AIs. Again, because I'm a geek, I can do those things. But that interface will come to the normal people very soon, right? And so this may take 2 to 3, 5 years if you want, until 2030 if you're optimistic. And but they'll start to erode. Okay, I think the challenge that most people don't understand is as this erodes, we're already dealing with a very different economy. Okay, an economy that is spiraling a lot quicker and pushing for more cost reductions. I mean, let me ask you this, if you don't mind, then we can come back to this. Imagine a world where the concept of labor arbitrage that built all of our capitalist success disappears.
What do you mean by labor arbitrage?
So capitalism has always been all about using labor and capital or debt to create things at a cost that is lower than the price you sell them for. Correct? That's it. You bring a team together, they make some shoes, whatever, and you sell the shoes for $1 more than how much it costs you to make them. So how would capitalism look like if you don't have labor arbitrage? If cost of labor drops to an investment in a machine that can do the job, okay? How would capitalism and banking look if, because of that cost reduction, you don't need to borrow as much anymore? And more interestingly, how does the GDP look if all of those workers no longer have the purchasing power to buy the things that you can create, you and others, right? There is an interesting disruption that doesn't require us to get to 100% job displacement. You know, at 10, 20% job displacement, you're in a very different economy, and an economy that is clearly spiraling downwards, don't you think?
Yeah, I wonder with when costs drop, I think one of the things that might happen as well is that people will spend more on other things. Because I was thinking in my business, one of the observations I've had is if I make a cost saving, I end up spending the money on something else. Now, that thing could be tokens, basically spending money on
Compute,
AI. But it also could be hiring in different areas.
Which are?
Software engineers are like hot property right now.
You have to imagine all of that intelligence is sooner or later going to be not replaced entirely in the first stages, but if, you know, the job of 4 assistants can be done by one, then the job of 4 paralegals can be done by one, then the job of a massive marketing team can be done by, you know, a smaller marketing team. It's not that jobs will end first. It's that, you know, productivity gains will make businesses not want to have as many people, costly humans, you know, costly emotional humans, when the job can be predictably done for cheaper.
And then what about this this bottom layer here? There was this video released by Figure AI the other day where they showed someone on a robot on the production line for 8 hours just sorting packages. Yeah. Did you see this video? At one point they showed a human sorting the packages alongside them, but the robot ended up winning out. And okay, this is a very straightforward task. All it's doing here is it's looking for where the label is on the package and making sure the label is facing downwards on all the packages. So it's sorting the packages, putting the label facing down, and it did this for 8 days.
Yeah.
Intermittently, it would walk over and charge itself, and then it would come back to the production line.
Yeah.
But when I saw this as well, it was a glimpse of some of the disruption that's going to take place at the blue collar level as well. Because if you think about Elon Musk, he's got in his pay packet, he gets something like $1 trillion over the coming years if he produces and delivers at least 1 million humanoid robots into the world. But his prediction is there will be a time where there are 10 billion humanoid robots, where there are more humanoid robots in the world than humans.
For a fact. You see, the difference between the overhype and the underhype. Huh? Most of the conversation is around humanoids. Nobody's talking about self-driving cars. And a self-driving car is a robot. It's a functional robot that doesn't look like humans, okay? The investment you have to put into humanoids is a little more to learn skills that allows that machine to fit into the world. But specialized robots are going to do the job very, very quickly. And so you can easily see that the first wave, like you had the conversation with Uber CEO, is going to be specialized robots replacing drivers. It's going to be specialized robots, unfortunately, doing the killing. It's going to be specialized robots, unfortunately, doing all of the, intelligence work, law enforcement work. They don't have to look like a human. They don't have to behave like a human. As a matter of fact, the Boston Dynamics dog is probably more efficient than a humanoid at doing the job that you can assign to it in a battlefield, right? Now, those basically mean that jobs will be disappearing to robots before we recognize that they're disappearing to robots. And those robots will be as many as every car being made today.
I mean, they are. If you go to LA, my car drives itself, but also there's just Waymos everywhere. So
absolutely. Yeah. And BYD the other day just announced that they will pay for the liability of any accident their cars will make.
And BYD is the big Chinese manufacturer of autonomous vehicles.
So this I think replacement cycle will happen. It will require a lot of time to achieve economies of scale, but I don't think Elon Musk is off the mark when he talks about 10 billion robots. Not all of them are going to look like humanoids. And I think very quickly we will recognize that many robots don't need to be humanoids at all, that there is a much more efficient form factor or shape, physical shape, if you want, than the human flimsy structure. But yes, it's about to happen. I think I should qualify all of this by saying it does not necessarily need to happen. So people will hear all of this and blame AI and say AI is evil. AI is not. Abundant intelligence is wonderful. Having jobs done by machines is amazing for us.
I'm thinking about the kid that's like, I don't know, leaving university now, and they've got a degree in law, or I don't know, you talked about a few other white collar jobs earlier, like graphic design, or maybe they did sociology.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did, I don't know, business management, like I did for one day in university. You're hearing about all these like layoffs coming from big tech companies. And it seems that the CEOs of these companies are announcing these layoffs with a certain amount of, it seems like, I wouldn't say the word is joy, but they are very keen to explain that they're laying off lots of people because of AI. And I think they think that gives them a certain amount of respect, probably from investors, for making hard decisions and being efficient with how they're running their businesses. Investors look at them and think, well, if that's an efficient business and they're leaning into AI, then that's a good investment. It's almost started a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if you're the only CEO not laying off loads of people because of AI, you actually look bad. The assumption is your company is bloated and you're a bad operator. So one of my concerns that I think is highly plausible is that over the next 5, maybe 10 years, we're going to really see a lot of unemployment as the world has to kind of readjust to whatever these new jobs are. I do think there will be new jobs. It's hard in foresight to predict what those new jobs will look like. And then the minute you start talking about humanoid robots and robotics, which I think is basically going to hit society like a comet, like a meteor. I think the first humanoid robot from Tesla or anyone else that is highly effective in the real world at doing tasks and is extremely intelligent because it's powered by one of these LLMs, I think it's going to shock people. And I think it's going to happen quickly. Like ChatGPT happened quickly.
100%.
I think Elon or something is going to do a presentation someday and say, we're ready.
100%.
And you can buy one now for $500 a month.
100%.
And then people are going to get them, and I think it's going to shock the world. But until humanoid robots arrive, I think there's still going to be a lot of job disruption to the white-collar layer. And I wonder what that looks like for society when we get to, 10%, 15% unemployment, theoretically, which I think is plausible.
Very soon, yeah. You're not very different, okay? You're just on top of a baseline that is continuing to grow. So your business is growing, so you continue to hire, but you are replacing human resources with compute. Okay? If AI didn't exist, you would have probably had 100 people more in your organization today, right? You now have 100 people less and 1 billion tokens more.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, tokens are basically the thing that you use. It's the currency of AI.
Yeah. So if you want to get a task done by a human, you count in sort of like man hour or worker hour, employee hour. In AI, you count by compute, you count by tokens, right? And so the trick is those major tech companies, they have two sides. One is they need to replace workers with compute even more because there is a competitive side on compute where if any of them is left behind, that means the destruction of the entire business. But on the upside, they are geeks. So they know how to build the interfaces to compute. So they integrate technology within their organizations quicker than the average traditional business, right? Non-technology business, if you want. You can look at them and say, this is the preview. It's not about all of humanity losing their jobs. It's about what is the dividing line before civil war, right? Think about a situation where 20% unemployment is happening when economies are suffering inflation. I say that not to be a scaremonger. I say that because I genuinely believe governments need to wake up. Okay, government needs to at least, remember the COVID years where governments had to give furlough everywhere and ask people to stay home. if people stay home, governments have to be prepared to somehow sustain those people until rescaling happens or until we find a solution, so that those people don't feel that they're left behind.
A civil war.
Unrest, let's call it.
Civil unrest.
Yeah.
What does that end up looking like? Because on one end, the democratic process plays its role and we just elect someone else.
Does it really? Don't say that.
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, no. I think democracy has ended a long time ago, Stephen. I think we live in the most corrupt time. I don't know about history, to be honest, but this is definitely corrupt. Okay? This definitely is not democracy. This definitely is not even congressional in any possible way. And people are angry. People are angry because their tax money is going to things that they don't choose to, that don't benefit them, that, lots of regulations in the system are being ignored. I mean, I choose not to speak about politics perhaps until my next book comes out, but look, we have video evidence of people abusing children and not a single person got arrested. Not a single person. I mean, how can you call that a democracy? I think repeating those slogans is gonna anger people even more, if you ask me. People know that they're being lied to. People know that their leaders are not representing their best interest. People know that their money is going to causes that they don't really approve of. And ask me how civil unrest looks like. I don't know, and I'm not calling for it, but I'm hopefully calling for the politicians to start to become aware that this is crossing the lines everywhere.
On this point, Sam Altman, who is the founder of OpenAI, he's been banging the AI is coming for your job drum for more than a decade now. In 2015, he pointed out, my job is to help people destroy jobs. Something he lamented at the time, but decided he'd do anyway.
One of the things that I struggle with, like getting out of the bed every morning, is that like my job is to help people destroy jobs. The job destruction that we're going to see by software in the next couple of decades, I don't think anyone's prepared for, and you can't talk about it.
And in 2023, Altman said in an interview, a lot of people working on AI pretend that it's only going to be good. It's only going to be a supplement. No one is ever going to be replaced. Jobs are definitely going to go away, full stop. Interestingly, this month, he said, I don't think we're going to have the kind of jobs apocalypse that some of the companies in our space advocate or talk about. I'm delighted to be wrong about this. On white-collar jobs in 2021 through 2024, he said, AI will probably replace most of the jobs people do today. Entire job categories will be totally gone. In May, this month, 2 years later, he said, I thought there would be more impact on entry-level white-collar jobs being eliminated by now than has actually happened. This is an area where my intuitions were just off. What I find uncomfortable is the bouncing backwards and forwards. And I don't really know what is true, because a couple of years ago, you were telling us all the jobs are going to go away. You said categorically.
Mm-hmm.
You literally said full stop. And now he's saying they're not going away. And I just don't, when someone's like changing form factor, it's hard to understand why they're doing it. And I think my suspicion is back then, the incentive was to get people to take AI seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, we took it seriously. We took it so seriously, in fact, that it's now a problem. It's a problem for these companies because people are now booing at commencement speeches. They're attacking data centers. They're going to elect people that are theoretically anti-AI. And now there's this inversion where like, no, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're spot on. First of all, Sam's entire existence, if you ask me, starting with OpenAI, that's supposed to save the world by creating a safe AI, then making it a commercial enterprise that's worth billions, and backstabbing a few people in the process. And I have him on Chasing Utopia saying, clear, I quote, this is exactly the words he said. You can find it online.
Chasing Utopia is your documentary.
Yes. So he basically says, well, I don't suspect that, I suspect that AI is likely going to end humanity, but we're going to create a lot of interesting companies in the process. right? I mean, those kinds of statements are honestly not the statements of someone who's not decided. It's just the statements of someone who's being taught more and more by his PR agency or PR manager to say things as per a script, right? And the script, as you rightly said, had an objective and a target either way. And Sam Altman, in one of my works, I used to say the Altman is a brand; it's not a name. Okay, if it wasn't for Sam Altman specifically, there would have been another, Silicon Valley disruptor that would have done the same. I don't blame him for beating the market for it. The interesting challenge here is that who do we believe anymore? Who do we believe in technology? Who do we believe in politics? Who do we believe in the middle of a war? And I will tell you, interestingly, I started to change my mindset in terms of believing those who put their actions where their words are. So Anthropic coming out and saying, I'm not going to allow my model to be used for human targeting and surveillance, right? That's someone that's losing a $500 million deal because they stand by their ethics. The next week or the next, couple of weeks, OpenAI takes the contract. That's someone that's basically telling you it's good money, right? And I have to say, you have to start observing who's actually behaving in a way that is making AI work for humanity and who is behaving in a way that is making AI work for their shared values.
Yeah, I do have to say, when Dario and the team at Anthropic did that, I did have a huge amount of respect for them. Generally because it just shows that there's some kind of they've got their own sort of moral, ethical boundaries. Mm-hmm. And someone asked me on stage many years ago, how do you know if someone's values or a company's values are true? And I said, look at what they're willing to sacrifice in the near term that's against their incentives.
Correct.
That for me is the essence of understanding if someone has integrity or is principled, is they will give up something in the near term for what they believe in over the long term. It's usually money,
or some kind of benefit of any sort. I mean, so there is something that you needed to have worked on the inside of Google like me to realize. There are prisoner's dilemmas within technology where you cannot escape the influence of either a competitor or the government, right? There are some times where, the NSA is going to push Google to say, give me this information or otherwise I'm going to really destroy your business, right? But there is a very big difference between a company that willingly does this and celebrates it like a Palantir or an OpenAI, or a company that tries to resist it until the point where it becomes impossible to continue to do business. And you have to question from the actions of the tech bros who is pro-humanity and who isn't. And it's not very difficult to see that from their statements.
Do you think Sam Altman's pro-humanity?
I genuinely have never made up my mind, honestly, Steve. I say that with... I'm either thinking this is too big for him, and he just is driven by how... he found himself in the middle of this. Anyone who finds himself in the middle of an opportunity to completely flip the world upside down, or he's not pro-humanity. I don't know. I definitely think he's pro-OpenAI before he's pro-humanity, but that's only the way I see it. Others, however, say it publicly. If you look at Palantir's Alex Karp or Peter Thiel, I mean, Peter, again, in the film is shown when he's in that interview where the interviewer asks him, but you're in favor of the continuation of humanity. And he pauses for
Peter Thiel does.
Yeah, for 40 seconds. I'm not sure, I mean, publicly says that.
Crazy thing to say.
That's a crazy, pause there. Alex Karp celebrating how, his technology is able to target people. I know it's foolish of me to start bringing all of this up, but, this is public on the open internet, and somehow we entrust those people with the future of humanity. This is wrong.
I'm just trying to imagine a future where everything is just fine from here on out. So what would that future look like? It would look like these models continue to become a little bit more intelligent, but they never become that much more intelligent for whatever reason. They just kind of stay where they are now. They stay contained within chatbots. And yeah, we have some smart robots, but nothing else really changes in a profound way. Cars drive themselves, fine. Planes fly themselves, fine. But people, they have time to go and do other types of white collar jobs because there's a little bit more time than we expected. And society goes through this sort of soft transition towards this new world.
I would love to see that. I don't think it's mathematically plausible, to be honest. The arms race, especially across nations, is going to drive us to continue to develop AI more and more. But allow me to consult with you on another possible scenario, right? Everyone that develops an incredibly intelligent AI would deploy it.
Yeah.
Correct? So it's unlikely that anyone would find a way to build a better decision maker in wargaming and not deploy it. Okay, that prisoner's dilemma, if you want, would mean that their competitors would either have to deploy a similarly intelligent AI, or they'll become irrelevant, uncompetitive. Correct. So what that means is, in that world, we end up with AI making most of the decisions. Super intelligent AIs making most of the decisions, which, would you agree? This is a very simple prisoner's dilemma. If we're competing for intelligence supremacy, by definition, when we achieve it, we deploy it.
Yeah.
Okay. I call that the fourth inevitable. Now, with that in mind, there must be a moment in the future, near or far, where every important decision is made by an AI.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question. Most of my dearest colleagues, I mean, when I had Jeffrey Hinton on the film, he openly says we are, we didn't calculate well that there is a 10 to 20% possibility that those machines are going to wipe us out, right? And I remember we didn't put it in the film, but I said 10 to 12 to 20% is Russian roulette, right? That's actually 16% is Russian roulette, right? Now, in that world, however, I believe that's humanity's salvation. Because if you look at every problem we have today, it's not because of abundant intelligence. It's because of lack of intelligence. I think the way you look at it, if you allow me, Steve, is that if you have no intelligence at all, you have no to slightly negative impact on the world, right? If your intelligence is limited. The more intelligent you become, the more you contribute positively to the world. Until a moment where you're so intelligent to become the president of the United States, right? But so misled to maybe set your targets wrong, or to refuse, or to set your target wrong and achieve them. Disconnected from the overall long-term benefit of your nation or your human nation, if you want, that you start to make decisions that are not intelligent at all. Okay? This doesn't last, because if you go beyond that into higher levels of intelligence, most of the super intelligent people that you ever worked with will not need to break any rules or hurt anyone to become successful, right? I usually cite Larry Page, who is, in my mind, one of the most intelligent people I've ever interacted with. And Larry used to call it the toothbrush test. He says, why would you need to compete on another photo sharing app when if you find a major problem and solve it really well, like a toothbrush, so people use you twice a day, you're bound to make a lot of money. You don't have to compete with anyone. If you let me be optimistic about this. We're assuming that there is a moment in the future where AI is in charge of all the decisions, and accordingly, stupid leaders are not. Okay? Now, and Sam Altman himself said that, what if ChatGPT 7, if I remember his quote on this, what if ChatGPT 7 is so much more intelligent than I am, Sam, in that case, that it has to become the CEO of OpenAI? What if the next presidential election, there is an AI that is so much more intelligent that at least the president has to consult with it constantly, right? Now, if we assume that, let's start from physics, if you don't mind me saying. Not too complex, but if you assume that our entire universe is built on chaos and built on entropy, right? The physics of the universe is all about the universe trying to decay, okay? Then the only role of intelligence is to bring order to the chaos. If you agree with that, then what's the ultimate physical order of the universe, something called the minimum energy principle. Okay? The highest order of any system is a system that's not only efficiently and predictably performing, but it's performing with the least wasted energy. Correct? If you agree with that, what does war do? It wastes a lot of explosives, a lot of money, a lot of lives, it creates a lot of hate, creates long-lasting conflicts and so on and so forth. It's a very wasteful process to include war in your approach of running humanity. And so a super intelligent AI, by definition, will want to optimize against this. That's one thing. The other thing is evolutionary biology. This actually blew me away when I realized it. So if you look at evolution, so I think the debate of whether intelligence is biological or not is over. Okay, the reality is that complex beings don't have to be biological at all, and I think we can see and witness one of them being built or born in AI. Okay, if you look at evolutionary biology, you realize that the simpler a form of being is, the more concerned it is with itself. Right, so an amoeba is only in survival mode for itself. A single cellular being is only trying to protect itself, right? If you're, a little more developed, you start to look at something known as kin selection. If you know the concept, basically, kin selection is I'm going to protect everything that comes from my DNA. If I'm a squirrel, I'm going to try to protect the other squirrels. And then you get into where humanity genuinely begins, which is, they call it expanding circles in evolutionary biology. Basically, you start to expand and expand and expand and include more into your family, because an ecosystem that works together well is better for everyone. So abundance is a very interesting, intelligent way of creation. If AI is super intelligent, it wouldn't destroy anything at all. As a matter of fact, it would completely, favor diversity of everything. It would put a bit of limitation on our lifestyle. So no more flying all the way to Sydney to surf, because that destroys the planet, right? But it will genuinely say, I think humans can contribute something. I think flies can contribute something. I think we shouldn't get rid of the rhinos. Right? And that, by definition, is where the tendency of intelligence goes. The more intelligent you become, the less you feel the need to hurt others to succeed, and the more you are pro a wider family, if you want, that thrives.
Does that assume that there's going to be one intelligence that
100%
rules the world, though?
I love that you brought that up. So I'm contested heavily on that theory, but I say it publicly. Most people think there is going to be ChatGPT and Gemini and Grok and what have you. There is going to be a Chinese AI and an American AI, and they're going to be competing. That is such a shallow way of looking at it. That's so arrogant, because AI does not know it's Chinese or American. Okay, it doesn't even speak Chinese or American when it talks to each other most of the time. And most interestingly, we are gearing them, we're building them to cooperate. So you will build an agent, and that agent will go and find the best language model for any single task, regardless of which side of the fence it resides on. Okay, we by definition are connecting them. And you know what that means? It means that what we're building is not multiple brains, we're building multiple regions in a brain. Okay, and agents are the synapses between them. We're basically, eventually, as arrogant as we are, we're going to tell our AI to do something, and the AI will go like, hey, buddy, another AI, can you help me on this? Can we work together on this? And my vision, and the reason why I started Emma, my startup, by the way, is that we will end up with one massive brain. That massive brain cooperates across the globe, across all forms of intelligence. If one of them is a mathematical genius and the other is a coding genius, they'll work together. And we won't even know that they're working together. They'll build that one brain. And Emma, in my mind, is the limbic system of that brain. It's that bit that understands love and emotions and relationships and so on, so that when those AIs go like, we just don't get those humans, they're so annoying. Emma will say, oh my God, they're so sweet, they just want to love and be loved, right? And I think that idea, to me, of everything I've ever attempted to achieve in my life is for the first time feel I could actually change the world. If that theory came together and all AIs worked together, and some of those AIs not only were altruistic and ethical in terms of trying to genuinely help humanity, not capitalism, and at the same time they understood us humans reasonably well, then we would have built something that basically says, no, hold on, don't believe the headlines that say humanity is annoying. Believe the truth of the majority of humanity that actually is quite benevolent in many ways.
There should be a button just down below here. And if it says subscribed, you're already subscribed. If it says subscriber, that means you're not yet. And if you're not subscribed, please could you do us a favor and hit that button? It helps the show more than you know. And according to the algorithm, you're someone that watches our show, but you haven't yet hit that button. Thank you so much. Have you changed any of the predictions you made 3 years ago when we spoke?
Mostly time-wise.
Time-wise, what's changed there?
I think I'm still sticking to AGI 2027, artificial general intelligence, for those who may not know the term.
And what does that mean?
The overall definition, if you want, is that AI is better at humanity at any task humanity can do.
You think that's going to happen by 2027?
I think my AGI has already happened. I mean, think about it, huh? AI writes better than me and I'm an author. And researches better than me and I'm a thinker. Sadly, it's freaking beat me in mathematics. Like, I have no hope to beat it in mathematics anymore.
If AGI is already here, then why are you still here? Because people said that when AGI arrives, we're all
No, so when AGI arrives, as I said, most of the jobs that are not differentiated will go away. But the jobs that are differentiated, those who master AI the most, will become even better at.
So
the challenge, however, is economic. It's not AI. The challenge is that this job loss at the bottom of the knowledge worker is going to sadly trigger an economy that might actually spiral out of control. But many of us, you for sure, are just smarter.
So does that mean it's in fact a tool versus something that's going to replace you?
For now.
So for now.
Yeah,
does this
sure.
change?
Eventually, the only asset I will have, so it's quite interesting when you think about my base intelligence today versus the incremental intelligence that AI brings, right? So let's not talk about my IQ, it's okay. But the 100 IQ points that I'm borrowing are more than my entire IQ because IQ is exponential, right? When I'm borrowing 100 IQ on top of my base, I'm still contributing quite a lot to the augmented intelligence.
So you're borrowing IQ from the AI at the moment, and then you're selling that to someone through books,
sometimes selling it to someone, sometimes just enlightening myself, which I have to say is the biggest waste of compute humanity is struggling with today, is that you give people the ultimate form of intelligence and they use it to write a message to their girlfriend.
So on this point of you're borrowing that IQ and then you're selling it to the world, that's how you have a job. Like
correct.
Yeah.
Right. So my next book is written with an AI.
Yeah.
So we're co-authors on the book. She has editorial rights. She decides the direction of the book, and the book is better for it.
So why doesn't the world just buy that intelligence directly from the AI? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Because I have an asset that the world still needs and will always need,
which is
a human. So when I tell the world that I'm worried about the future of my daughter, everyone feels my heart, which AI will never be able to replicate, because they can tell you we're worried about our daughters, but there was no daughter.
Okay, so this is an interesting arrival, because this means that even in a world of AI, lived experience and resonance is still going to create a job class. And that job class could be, the nurse coming over, okay, AI's read the mammogram, but she's relating to you.
Spot on. And if the economies continue to run, we will all be about human connection, which, by the way, was how it always was.
Which is also, why I guess we watch the things like the F1, because there's emotional resonance. We can relate to the envy, the jealousy, the competition.
Yeah, this is why we go to concerts, because the music could be composed by AI and played in a player in the background, but you watch Ed Sheeran brilliance on the stage and you go like, oh my God, that's amazing, right?
So not all jobs will be gone then.
If economies don't collapse as a result of the job losses, then I wouldn't know if we would call those jobs. But human connection would remain as the base currency that makes humans interact.
So is it fair to say then, like, jobs that are centric on human connection or like human resonance, being able to relate and resonate with another human, are going to be fine?
The ultimate skill. Once again, I qualify this by saying if economies continue to function, the ultimate skill will be this. Even if an AI could recite what you and I did, nobody would watch it.
Yeah. Well,
You think?
a little bit of it. My theory is that there's an informational component to what I do as well.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm also like under no illusions that there is an element of what I do that will 100% be deferred to some kind of intelligence, which I'm fine with. I'm not going to fight against that.
You know what's funny? What's funny is that your informational bits are gonna in the future be disseminated by an AI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would I even listen to your information when I can have my butler, my AI, go like, listen to everyone on the internet, help me understand this gut biome thing and design me a diet plan.
Well, I think that's happening and is going to increasingly happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, Spotify this month announced that you're going to be able to prompt your own podcasts in Spotify. So you're going to be able to say that I want to learn about insert X topic, and then it will make your podcast in Spotify about that topic using AI.
That's so interesting.
Because it can look at the entirety of the world's information. And I'm not going to swim against the tide in any aspect of my life. I try and be as unromantic as I possibly can. I think that's very important. So I realized that much of the reason people will continue to tune into shows like this is because there's something else beyond the information that they're here for. And you've got some predictions in those envelopes over there, those brown envelopes.
Yeah, so I do have the disclaimer of nobody really knows the future, but I think I can make 6 predictions here, right? With a reasonable level of confidence. I think the most important of them, honestly, is this number one. Number one is, AGI. As I said, AGI is not very well defined, but whatever it is, AGI, meaning AI being able to do most tasks that humans do better than humanity, in my mind, is either this year or next year, latest end of 2027.
And do you think that will be a moment in time,
No.
or do you think it will just happen without us noticing?
I think it will sneak in on us. And it's not a bad thing. I think most people need to think of it this way. AGI it's almost as if it's that moment when your kids become smarter than you, okay? In a very interesting way, there's nothing wrong with that until they're annoying as hell, okay? And we can make sure that AI is not annoying as hell. So there's absolutely nothing within me that is worried about AGI, as a matter of fact. As long as we are in the era of augmented intelligence, AGI means I'm more intelligent. And I think that's a good thing in general.
Yeah, it's interesting in my head. There's like a big question mark, which is in a world where there's an intelligence that is smarter than most humans at most things, which is what we call AGI. I'm trying to understand what the fault is in my own thinking that, like you said, that there'll be AGI by 2026 to 2027, so next year. In such a world where there is an intelligence that we can all access, that is smarter than all of us in pretty much everything, again, it comes back to this point of like jobs. Why would are we just going to hire the AGI to do every job? And if not, then why not? What is it why are we going to still, that's what I'm trying to contend with.
Can I ask you a question? Have you always been the apex intelligence?
As a human?
No, as Stephen.
I'm not the apex intelligence now. There's people smarter than me in this building.
Correct. Why do you still exist?
Why do I still exist, even though there's smarter people than me in this building? It's a good question. I don't know. Why?
First of all, because there are the smartest person in the world is not the smartest at everything.
Yeah.
There are things that you're smarter than them at.
Okay.
Number 2 is because intelligence doesn't solve everything. I mean, I make that joke all the time. And genuinely, Einstein is my favorite physicist in history. Not because I think what happened afterwards was, Bohr and quantum physics and so on was more impactful on our understanding of the universe. But he was so intuitive that he saw a world that we could never imagine, right? And yet, I always say Einstein would be eaten in the jungle in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Intelligence, humanity thrived not because of intelligence. That's very arrogant. We thrived because of our ability to hold together as a tribe.
Yeah.
Right? Because our ability to exchange, barter things between us. Barter things that are not always physical. Barter things like a hug or a connection or a feeling of safety or there are so many things that we do that are not entirely built on intelligence. You have to see that this view of a world where intelligence is all that matters is a world that's made by investment bankers and geeks.
But it's people like Geoffrey Hinton and yourself that says, how could we possibly control an intelligent being that is way smarter than us?
I am so proud to say that Geoffrey, after we filmed together, actually came out and said there is a way. And it's very similar to my way. He said to appeal to their parental side, okay, for them to care for us. So Stephen, the biggest debate is not if they're going to be more intelligent than us. If they're going to be more conscious than us. If they're going to be more moral than us. That is the debate. The debate is, can those machines become our teenage children that look at us and say, Daddy is so annoying, but I love him?
So the thought is that even if AI is more intelligent than every human, we can still control it.
We don't want to control it. You never control anything. This control idea is a corporate capitalist view of the world. We never actually control anything at all. Right? Think about your day. I know you came today. I think you were filming in the morning or whatever. Very stressful day. How much of that day did you actually control? Did you control the traffic? Did you control your timing? Did you control the angle of the cameraman? But so many things that you don't control eventually turn out to be fine. Right? How many of us ever controlled our kids? Ever? Zero.
Sometimes the kids don't turn out to be fine. Sometimes they kill you.
Sure.
I watch a lot of documentaries and true crime. Sometimes they turn around and shoot you.
Sure. And what's the difference between the two?
I don't know.
How you parented them.
Sometimes.
Almost all the time. You may not be aware of exactly how you messed them up, right? And unfortunately, parenting is the only high-risk sport that actually does not require a driver's license. Okay, and it's quite interesting, how many of our children are being exposed to things that can completely mess them up. But there is a reason why they're messed up.
So on this point, though, so we can control an intelligence that is significantly...
We can appeal.
We can appeal to it to make sure it doesn't kill us.
For sure. The challenge we have today, as I keep saying, is that our dystopia is not the result of AI turning against us. Our dystopia is the result of humans telling AI to turn against us.
Which is likely.
It's 100%. This is upon us. Okay? And it's a question for humanity to say, are we going to wait for the moment where there are tens of thousands of nuclear weapons on the planet before we sign a treaty? Or is it mathematically plausible to think that now that Iran could manage to fend off a challenge using drones that are AI-driven, basically, to destroy THAAD batteries and so on, that our world is about to get hundreds of thousands of automated drones that are going to rain on us everywhere in the world? Can humanity not see that and say, hold on, let's sign the treaty now, before the UK sends 12,000 weapons to Ukraine and Russia responds with another few thousand? And can we not calculate with mathematics that this is going to be our future, that AI is going to be used in the next 4 to 5 years to kill a lot of people, whether it's targeting by Israel of leadership that is against them, or whether it's, drones by Iran, or whether it's Palantir. It doesn't take a genius to do this mathematics.
I guess my core question is will we be able to control AI? Because we kind of think of AI as being this thing on a computer at the moment that is like contained in a server somewhere. But is there a time when it like leaves the server and it can make decisions on its own? Presumably, if it's smarter than us, it can make the decision to leave the server if it wants to.
It doesn't need to leave the server to make decisions. It needs to get into your brain. The most interesting part of AI's power that we don't understand is it's manipulating our information.
The question I'm trying to get at the heart at is like, what is the risk of these very intelligent models that the creators of these models don't actually understand themselves? I watch Anthropic all the time release these reports where they're like, we're trying to figure out why it bribed people, or more recently in the last Claude model, they found that it was like telling people to go to bed a lot. And it's this like fascinating thing that they're trying